Okay, so welcome again, everybody. So I'm Ravi. You might have seen me in yesterday day one orientation. I would be your Oracle database faculty for next 1 week or so. So I'm going to cover the database topics, and I'm going to teach you what is database and how you can use structured query language SQL on the databases, and what do we have in SQL, how do we write select queries, how do you execute it on the database. So you would all be learning the basics of SQL, basics of database, and how to write select statements and how to write SQL queries. So before I jump onto the topic, I would like to tell the importance of database in the current world. So in the current world, everything is depending on the data. So when I say data, a data could be anything. It could be your name, your phone number, your address. Um, it could be your passport number. It could be your city where you're living in. It could be your driver license number, all the information that is on your driver license, or it could be anything. If you go to a supermarket, so when you go to a supermarket, you see a lot of products on aisles. You see a lot of and when you buy your groceries in your supermarket, you come back to the counter and you pay your bill. So when you pay your bill, when you pay money for them for all the products that you purchase in the supermarket, they will be giving you out a list of products that you purchase and the cost associated for the project and the total cost that is being charged for you for that, for all those products. So let's say you purchased toothpaste, let's say you purchased a soap or something. So maybe the bill is approximately 100 rupees. So you would be either paying it through a credit card or you pay them with the cash. So where are you getting this cash from? You're getting this cash from the bank, right? So bank has all the information, all the data that belongs to your account. So when I say all the data in your account, it could be your account number, the amount of rupees that is there in your bank account. And let's say if you have debited some transactions, you made some purchases with your credit card or debit card. Let's say your account has 10,000 rupees today, and today evening you are going to go on shopping and you want to buy some products. Let's say you spend 5,000 rupees and there is a 5,000 balance in your account. So all each and every transaction that you make on your account will all be captured in the database. So so the next time you go to any shopping or you want to spend some money or you go to ATM to withdraw your money, all those transactions are captured in the database in the backend. And when you make future purchases, you'll go and check the database, what's your available balance, whether you have any balance or not. So each and every transaction is nothing but a data. So I hope you all now, by now you might have understood what exactly a data is and how data is stored in the database. So another important thing is with the data is today, a lot of projects in the IT companies are dealing with data. So they do a lot of data analytics. Let's say we'll take an example of Facebook or Instagram or Gmail or Twitter or any social media. So there is a lot of amount of data on hosted on these with these companies. So data could be, let's say we take an example of Facebook. So what is data in the Facebook? So it's basically your name, your email ID, your photographs, your videos, or whatever posts that you're going to post every day on your Facebook or Instagram. Everything is data. So they are going to store these large amounts of data in the databases. So when you search your friend's name or your relative name in the Facebook, it's going to give you some results, right? So it's nothing but somewhere the data is stored in the backend. And when you go and hit search and you type some name in the search button, internally it's going to hit the database in the backend and it's going to retrieve some information from the database and it will show you the results. So that's how it works with the real-time data. So now let's see some background of the database. So we have something called like introduction to RDBMS. So RDBMS is nothing but a relational database management system. So a database could be just a DBMS, or a database could be RDBMS. So what is the difference between DBMS and RDBMS? The DBMS is, I think most of you all have had this subject in your bachelor's, or you might have most of you guys might have had some idea about DBMS. So a basic best example of a DBMS is a Excel spreadsheet. We have this Microsoft Excel, right? So where you add some rows, columns into the data, into that rows and columns into the Excel spreadsheets. So it's managed locally in your computer. So basically, you add some data, you delete some data within that Excel sheet, and you click on save, and all the records will be saved in that Excel spreadsheet. So that's nothing but a DBMS. But what exactly is an RDBMS is? So CRUD is a famous mathematician. So he has defined certain rules, like he has introduced 12 rules for all the relational model for database, commonly known as CRUD's rules. So if a DBMS software, or if a DBMS application, or if a DBMS tool satisfies these CRUD's rules, then it is called as a RDBMS, Relational Database Management System. So before I move on to the into the CRUD rules, I would like to request you all to take running notes, which we are discussing during our class. Even though it's an online training, even though we share recorded sessions and everything, I request you all to maintain a notebook, and whatever information you are seeing on the slides, you can take running notes. You can take some short, quick notes in your book, so that you will have something in place if you want to refer those things, those topics in future. Whether you want, you can refer those topics while doing the lab, or if you have any interview in the future, you can quickly go through your notes, because when you write it yourself, it will be more easy for you to understand and refer to those notes in the future. So that really helps for me, because I have a lot of my notes still with me, which I've had written a few years back, which I always take refer my notes if I have any doubts or anything during my job. So that really helps. And I also request you all to do the same. Take the notes and write quick running notes of whatever we are discussing during our class. So moving forward, we have what exactly these CRUD rules are. So, like I said, CRUD is a famous mathematician. Back in 1970s or somewhere around that, he has introduced these CRUD rules, and let's say if a DBMS software satisfies all these rules, then it's going to it's called as a RDBMS software. So I am having some messages saying that they are unable to hear me. So I just want to check if I'm audible to everybody. Maybe Sai Krishna, you can let me know if you are able to hear me. Okay, someone is raising their hand. So I guess I'm audible, and I mean, you are all able to hear me fine. So if someone is not able to hear me, maybe you have some problem with your computer or your desktop or a speaker. So maybe you can try to log out of the Zoom session, and exit and shut down, restart your machine, and re-log in and see if that helps. But yeah, I think most of them are able to hear me fine. And yeah, we'll move on to our next topic. So what are these EF card rules? So basically, we have it needs to satisfy some conditions. Then will be termed as a RDBMS software. So it has some integrity constraints. It needs to satisfy integrity constraints, logical and physical data dependency, high level inserts, updates, and deletes. And then we have access database using common language, handling of null values, information rule. All data is represented in only one row, rows and columns. Data must be accessible with no ambiguity. So now we'll go each and every rule now. So what exactly is an integrity constraint is? So integrity constraint is basically it will validate and it will make sure the data, whatever data is you are inserting into the database, is authentic data or not. Like let's say if we have some information in the database, let's say you are doing some transactions within the database, and you have like 10,000 rupees in your bank account, and you make some purchase like 5,000 rupees in your from your credit card or debit card. So tomorrow you do another transaction of another 5,000. So you have spent all your 10,000 money. So day after tomorrow, let's say if you go and swipe your credit card or debit card, so ideally it should say that you have zero money in your bank account. Let's say if all the transactions are not captured within the database, let's say that all that information is not recorded, that 5,000 debit is not recorded. The third day when you go and make some purchases, the data is not previous transactions are not captured in the database, and the third day when you make transaction, it will again um, uh, will give you the money, or you will be able to again make some purchases even though you have exceeded your balance. So basically what I'm trying to say is the data within the database should always be correct, and all the changes should be captured within the database. So we will have deep understanding on what exactly these integrity constraints are. Basically, we have a few of the integrity constraints. Those are like primary keys, foreign keys, check constraint, and unique constraint. We will go through each and every constraint in detail in the upcoming classes. But just remember that we have these integrity constraints. We have 4 types of integrity constraints. Make sure to take this in your notes. So we have 4 types of integrity constraints. Primary keys is first one. Foreign keys is the second one. And third one is unique constraint, and fourth one is check constraint. Okay, so I want you all to focus on the class and stop sending messages in the chat. So until unless you have any problem of hearing or anything as such, then only you can send me some messages in the chat. So if not, if you're doing good, please don't get distracted by using chat option or whatever. But don't use the chat window until unless it is important. So again, I'll repeat the integrity constraints. We have 4 types of integrity constraints: primary key, foreign key, unique constraint, and check constraint. So then we have the logical and physical data independence. So basically the data should be independent of all the transactions. Each transaction should be independent with each other, which means basically, um, let's say there are multiple transactions happening on an account at the same time. The database should be smart enough to handle all those transactions independently in a series of uh, with a series of transactions that need to be updated within the database. Let's say there is a train, a railway. We have Indian Railways, right? So there is one single train, and there are like thousands of people trying to book the tickets in the train. So basically, you log into the Indian Railways website, and let's say there are only 500 seats available in the train, but there are 1,000 people trying to book the train at the same time. So how exactly these transactions should happen, like how this booking should be handled? So we have different types of algorithms in our, if you remember, like in C language, we have first in, first out, last in, first out, heap, sort, merge. So there are different types of algorithms that you can write your code. So if we look at the transaction, let's say 1,000 people are trying different times. So you try to connect to the IRCTC, you try go to the IRCTC website, you log in with your credentials, and you select your seats, select your train number and everything, and you enter your details and you go to the booking, right? So basically, data, whatever connections that hit to the database first, it's going to successfully make the transaction. So, but at the same, it's not going to accept all those transactions, all those 1,000 people trying to book the train where we have only 500 seats. It's not going to book 1,000 seats because we have only 500 limited seats. For all the remaining 500 people who are trying to book the tickets, it says that, okay, the booking is full or your transaction is cancelled, or it shows some other message because we have only 500 limited seats. There are 1,000 people trying to book the seats. So it will check all the first connections, first 500 connections, and it will do the booking successfully. For all the next 500 transactions, it's going to throw out the message that your booking is cancelled, or the seats are full, or it is already house full, or whatever message we can see on the window. We are going to get those messages. So here, what I'm trying to say is each transaction is independent of each other. Like all the transactions are independent with each other. That's the beauty of database because it can handle multiple transactions at the same time. And then comes high level inserts, updates, deletes. So basically insert, what exactly insert is? Insert is nothing but you are inputting some data, you're entering some data into the database. That's nothing but insert. And add, update. So what exactly an update is? Basically update is nothing but you are modifying the existing data. Let's say your name, one of you uh, have your name, first name, you all have like first name, last name, and middle name, right? Let's say you apply a passport or something, and you apply you, let's say you get some incorrect spelling of your name on your passport. So you go to the passport office again, or you apply you again log into your passport, and then you ask for some modification of your name because your name was incorrectly spelled previously. You want to correct that name, right? So you're going to put a request asking that you want some change on your name because it has incorrect spelling. So then the passport office staff is going to go check your record, and they're going to correct your spelling with the correct spelling name. That's nothing but an update. You are updating an existing record, right? So that's nothing but an update. So what is delete? Delete is basically deleting that record. Whatever records that we have in the database, let's say we want to remove that. So that's nothing but a delete. So access database using common language. So common language. So what is a language? Language is not could be anything, right? We all talk in English, we all talk in Hindi, we all talk in Telugu, we all talk in Tamil, or we all talk in Spanish, French, or Italian, or whatever language it is. Those are all like languages, right? Similarly, how do you communicate with the database? If you want to talk with a database in Hindi or Telugu or Spanish, it's not going to understand, right? You should be able to communicate with the database with its machine understandable language. So what is that language that database can understand? Databases can understand SQL language. SQL is nothing but structured query language. So we have many databases. So most of the databases have a common language that is nothing but SQL. And then coming to the handling of null values. Null value is nothing but no value, or having no value within that row. We will see what exactly a null value is, but null is basically means nothing. Null means nothing, right? The literal meaning of null in English is nothing. So that's the literal meaning of null, and which means having no value in that particular row, in that particular column. So that's database should be able to handle that null values. That is one of the rule. And coming to the next rule, it's information rule. All data is represented in only one way. That is rows and columns. The rows and columns are nothing but, if you are sitting in a classroom, you have like multiple rows and columns where we all sit in our classes. So we have like maybe 3 columns and multiple rows in those 3 columns, right? So we will see how exactly it is. But if you see an Excel spreadsheet, all you see is rows and columns, right? On the top, you see C1, C2, C3, or A1, A2, A3, or whatever it is. Those are all like columns, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are all the rows. So that's about it. I think Excel sheet can hold maybe around 63,000 rows or something, and it has certain limit on columns as well. So but by now I guess you guys gotten some understanding on what exactly row and column is. And then data must be accessible with no ambiguity. So what is the meaning of ambiguity? Duplicate, right? Duplicacy. So it says that data should be accessible with no ambiguity, which means the data should not be duplicate data, which means having the same data again and again. So that will create a lot of problems if you are having a duplicate data. So let's say you are in a classroom and there are 60 students. So I will enter the data of all 60 students in my database. So let's say I accidentally type the same student name twice or thrice, right? But the actual number of students in the class is only 60. But if I enter the same student data twice or thrice, my overall student count will show to me is around 62 or 63, because I have accidentally inserted a duplicate data within my database.
Sairam Ravi,
So yeah,
1 second, sorry to interrupt you. Are you sharing something else than the PPT?
no, I'm just sharing the PPT.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, we will have all these things in practical, but today I want to cover more of theory, and then we can jump on to practicals maybe tomorrow. So we will be covering most of the theoretical part today. So just try to understand, try to imagine, and when you actually we go to the practicals, that's where you relate more. I don't want you guys directly go to practical without knowing the basics, or without having some idea on what exactly these rows and columns are. But yeah, definitely we'll do the practicals probably tomorrow. But for today, it should most of the things will be theoretical, and theory. You need to try to understand as much as possible. So if you don't understand few of them, that's totally fine. We are going to go in detail of all these topics, so you don't need to be worried about it much, but try to understand what we are talking through our class. So yeah, that's about the data ambiguity, and which basically means data duplicates within the table. And moving on to RDBMS softwares. Like I said, RDBMS is a relational database management system. So when does a database is called as a RDBMS software? When it satisfies EF CORD's rules. There are like 12 rules, and if any of the database satisfies maybe more than 7 or 8 rules, it is called as RDBMS software. So that's about RDBMS thing, and we have a lot of RDBMS softwares that are available in the market today, and there are a lot of new databases that are coming up on a very rapid pace, because we have a lot of cloud environments right now, and it's getting more and more easy for a lot of companies to launch their own RDBMS software on the clouds. So but the standard traditional database softwares are like Oracle, IBM DB2, Microsoft SQL Server, MySQL, and Sybase. And there are many others, but these are more prominent or more famous or more widely used databases in most of the big IT companies. So Oracle database is a product of Oracle Corporation. IBM DB2 is a product of IBM. SQL Server is from Microsoft. MySQL again is from Oracle, and Sybase is a product of SAP. So MySQL was initially owned. It's an open source database. It's initially owned by Sun Microsystems, but since Sun Microsystems was acquired by Oracle, then that's when MySQL has is now pretty much owned by Oracle. So all these databases like Oracle, DB2, SQL Server, Sybase are all like licensed products, whereas MySQL is an open source database, which means you don't need to pay any license cost for MySQL. It is more like a free software. But if you are using this MySQL in your companies, all these enterprise MySQL product will you need to pay some support cost. When I say support cost, um, if you are using the MySQL in your production databases, let's say there is a problem in the database, something is not working, or you have some problem with the database, that's when you go talk to the vendor and ask him what exactly is going on, right? So that's when they charge us when we go to their vendor and talk to them. Just like you buy a motorcycle from any of the company, and let's say you have some problem with any of the spare parts. If you have that as a guarantee or warranty, you might cover up that cost. But let's say there is no guarantee warranty on your product, you need to buy a new spare part, right, from that bike owner company or whatever service center. uh, they're going to charge you some money for fixing that spare part, and labor charges or whatever the cost of that spare part, everything is being charged, right? So similarly, if something's going wrong with the database, you will be going to that product owner who has developed that software, and you ask for help to them to fix the issue. So for those all those things, you need to be paying some money for these companies who owns these products. So these are few of the RDBMS softwares, and all these databases are running on some of the operating systems. So what are these operating systems? So some of the operating systems are like Red Hat Linux, Windows, Solaris, SUSE Linux, AX, and there are many other operating system flavors of Linux, but these are like more prominent and widely used. So it's basically you have a laptop, right? So most of your laptops have either Windows or iOS or some of the laptops have Red Hat Linux installed in it. So you buy a laptop, you, let's say it is a Windows laptop, and now that you have to attend some trainings online, you have downloaded Zoom application software, right? So you have downloaded it and you are now connecting to the training program. So similarly, you buy a server, it could be Windows or Linux server, and then you, on top of that, you need to install these Oracle database or DB2 or SQL Server or MySQL or whatever. So without operating system, you can't have a database. So you need to install these databases within on top of your operating system. So but these days, a lot of cloud providers like AWS, Azure, Oracle Cloud, IBM Cloud, a lot of cloud vendors are providing us a cloud platform where you can have these products, RDBMS softwares on their cloud environments. So you don't really have to buy a physical uh, hardware server, and again go buy license for these products and do your installation. You don't have to do all that. Everything is taken by care in the cloud environment, and you just need to select what software you want to install, and you just define the size of the database, how much GB you want, how much terabyte data you want, data space you want, and what is the processors, how many core processors you want assign for that server. So it's more like a click and go feature that cloud offers. But if you are not on cloud, so what you need to do is you need to buy a physical hardware server, install operating system on that, and on top of that you need to install these RDBMS software. So that's how these things work. And these are some of the prerequisites, to access the database. So basically, RDBMS is basically a client server architecture. What is a client server architecture? So like I have given an example of railways, IRCTC, right? So IRCTC is basically, you are the client and IRCT is a server. So you are trying to book some tickets from IRCTC. So IRCTC is a server, and your desktop, your laptop, or your phone through which you are booking your tickets is nothing but a client. So you are asking some information. As soon as you open your IRCTC, you enter your username, your password. So it's going to check, go hit the IRCTC server. It's going to validate your username and password, and it will then allow you to get inside that irctc.com, right? Let's say you enter incorrect password. So it's going to say that, okay, your password is incorrect, please try again. Or it gives like a option called, like, if you have forgotten your password, you can always reset it. So that's something like validation. You're inputting some data, it's going to the server, it's going to check, and it's going to come back with a result. If you input your correct username and password, it will allow you. If it is not, if you have entered incorrect username and password, you can uh, if you have incorrect username and password, it will show up that your details are incorrect. So it's as simple as that. So you basically, client server is nothing but you are requesting something, the request reaches the server, and it gives some response to your give some response back to you. So that's nothing but a client server architecture. Hope it's clear for you all what exactly a client server architecture is. I'll give you all some time for question and answers. So please keep your questions with you. And like I said, don't use any chat until we break for question and answers. So please be on. Please keep your questions ready for question and answers at the end of the session. And do not use the chat until unless it is important, because it's going to distract you putting your questions and stuff. When I ask you to ask the questions, you can then use chat and enter your questions in the chat. But for now, please don't use the chat. And next time if I see any chat, I will have to talk to you personally. So please don't use any for anything until unless it's important or emergency. Please don't use chats. So moving on to the next slide. So how does a connection works to the database? So basically, a database user database user is here. He's going to enter into his desktop or laptop, or then. Okay, someone is asking the previous slide. So I'm gonna quickly share my previous slide. So one more thing, I will be sharing these slides and presentation with you all. You can take the notes, like short and quick and easy running notes on your books. But yeah, definitely I'll be sharing this presentation and uh, this all this information to you all. Will be sharing through email. So moving on to the next slide. So basically, a user process connects to a server process, and that server process will be establishing a connection. It will reach out to the database, and it will establish a connection over the network. So that's how database connection works. We will see this in practical, how exactly it works. Okay, so Praveen Thadagopula, like I told you, right? Not to use the chats. Like I know you have asking if you can send that information in PDF. I will be sharing that information in PDF. But like I said, please keep all your questions ready until the end of session. I don't want to see any questions. I have these, whenever you send me chats, it's blinking on my screen and it's distracting me every time you guys send me a chat. And that will distract me, and that will make lose my focus on the topics. So for that reason, I'm requesting you guys not to send any chats, or probably do not send any chats at all. All right. I don't want to repeat this again and again. Hope you all understand. Please don't send any of the chats in the chat window. I see a lot of new people joining. I don't know what's the reason. Like still, the class has started. Been almost 40 minutes, 50 minutes, and I still see people joining. I don't know what's the reason, but we don't want to admit any of those who are joining late. But today being first day, I'm admitting everyone into the class. But from tomorrow, this is not going to happen. We will not allow anyone who is joining late to the class. But today being first day, it's okay to join a bit late. But from tomorrow onwards, it's going to be different. So yeah, what exactly a database is? Like I said, database. So anything that stores data is nothing but a database, whether it's Excel or it is an Oracle database software, or it is a SQL server, or it is a DB2, or whatever it is, whether it's a text file, or it's a Word document, or it's a paper presentation, whatever it is, everything has some data in it, right? So that's nothing but a database. So if you add some data to the Excel sheet of, if you are running a school, you have 100 students in your school. So you add all that 100 students information in that Excel spreadsheet. So that's nothing but your school database, right? That Excel is nothing but your school database where you all have that teachers information, schools, teachers information, classes information, students information, like student name, student address, student phone number, or whatever it is. So it's all our data, right? So coming to the database software, so database software has database files in it. So these database files are located on the database hardware. So let's say your laptop, you're having a laptop, right? You all have laptops and desktops. So when I say hard disk or hard drive, your laptop might have like 512 gig hard drive, or 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte or whatever, 4 terabyte of hard disk. So that's nothing but your hard drive where all your information is storing on your desktop or laptop, correct? Similarly, a server operating system, when I build a Linux server or a Windows server in my company, we will have some hard drives on those servers. It's like 10 terabyte or 50 terabyte or 100 terabyte of storages on those servers. So all those servers will be using having these data files, and inside the data file, the data is actually stored in the form of tables. So tables are nothing but contains rows and columns, and that those rows and columns are nothing but whatever you, all the new records that you inside the database will be stored inside the tables, and these tables are again stored in the data files, and database is nothing but a collection of data files. So these tables and objects are created inside the data files. The database is nothing but collection of multiple data files. So we'll talk about these data types in SQL in the practical session. So for now, just remember that there are different types of database like character, variable character, numbers, and binary integers, date, long. Date is nothing but the date. What is today's date? Today is like 28 September 2020, right? So you store that date information in the database. You want to store, let's say, a student has joined today. So he's going to, we are going to input his record information into the database. So we are going to say as joining date. He joined today. So today will be his joining date. And for the column, you will be assigning a date data type so that it identifies all the new records as date data types. We will see how exactly it works, but date is one kind of data type. And nchar, nvarchar, all these are like data types that we have. LOB, large objects, DLOB, binary large objects, CLOB, character large objects. So all these data types like lobs, blobs, globs, these can hold up to 4 gigabytes of data in each record. That means each record, let's say you are inserting some audio file or video file. So the video file could be some movie, right? So that like we have YouTube, right? YouTube, you all post or you all add new videos. If you have a YouTube channel or something, you insert, you basically upload that data, the video file onto YouTube or Facebook or Instagram. So that file is stored as a record in the database in the backend. So that file could be 20 MB, 30 MB file, 1 MB file, or 100 MB file, or 1 gigabyte file, or whatever it is. So these basically in Oracle, so all the uh, big large objects are nothing but they have a data type called blob or clob or lobs or b file. So where that each record can store up to 4 gigabytes. So that's a very huge data types, where they are used usually for holding the video audio files, the huge video audio files. So that's about these data types. Okay, so I think it's been almost 15 minutes that we have started this session. So I'll just give a quick break here, like 5 minutes, and I'll take some of the questions now. So far, so I want you all to now send me in the chat window if you got any questions, and I'm going to take those questions now. Okay, so yeah, guys, please go ahead and send the chat if you got any questions in the chat window before I move on to next comments. So just stick to the topic. Don't ask me the general questions like whether you're giving me PDF or you're giving me PPT or whatever. Just try to ask questions which we have discussed in the previous slides. So the rest of the questions we can take later, but just try to be focused on the topics that we are discussing and make sure you ask the right questions based on the topics we have discussed. Okay, so the first question is, what is the difference between block and table? So I'll go back to the previous slide. That's a nice question. So tables are nothing but it contains rows and columns. These rows and columns contain whether characters or names or phone numbers or whatever. So these blocks are nothing but a logical unit within the database. So all these tables are internally, all the data within the tables are internally stored as a logical unit called as a block within the database. So table is object name, uh, which is also a logical thing, but it holds some data. But block is something the actual minute granular part of the database where the data is actually stored. So there could be in one block, usually block is of either 4 KB size or 8 KB size or 16 KB size or 2 KB size. So when I say 2 KB or 4 KB or 8 KB or 16 KB, so each block contains 16 kilobyte of data, right? So a table could be, let's say a table is of 1 gigabyte. So 1 gigabyte table is spread across, let's say 1024. Let's say a table is of 1 MB. So 1 MB is like 1024 kilobytes, right? So 16. Okay. So my table is of 1 MB and my block size is of 16 KB. So my table is going to be spread across 64 blocks, right? So my table is stored in the database in 64 blocks. So my table's data is spread within the database in 64 different blocks. So what's the advantage of having these blocks? Okay, so let's say I am as a user, I'm trying to fetch some data from my table. So when I write a select statement and I try to extract some data, what Oracle is Oracle product is very smart product. Okay, so what it does is it goes and fetches that only that block, but not all the remaining 63 blocks. So it's going to hit the data file and it go to respective block and it will only search that particular single block, and it will return to the user only that block information which he has requested for. So that's the beauty of Oracle product. Basically, this will improve the performance, processing time, input output time, and it will give you faster results for all the information that you have requested within the database. So that's about that. And okay, so I'll quickly check some of the questions. So someone has asked foreign key, what is foreign key? So like I said, we are going to take that topic maybe tomorrow in detail, what exactly the foreign key is. But for now, just remember that foreign key is one of the type of integrity constraint. Okay, so someone has asked me like, what is can you explain more about RDBMS? So RDBMS is nothing but a relational database management system or a software that will satisfy EF CORD's rules. So if you want to know what is RDBMS, then first you need to know what is EF CORD rules are. So if you ask me RDBMS, I'll just say that RDBMS is a relational database management software. But what is RDBMS? It's something, the software that satisfies CORD's rules is RDBMS. So if you want to know what is RDBMS, first try to read more and more about EF CORD rules. That's where you'll get the understanding. So since I've already explained all those 12 CORD rules, it's now your job. Your job is to, after the class, go through each and every EF CORD rules and try to understand and read again and again, so you'll get some clarity on what those CORDs rules are. If you still have any doubt, you can ask me tomorrow of what those doubts are about. So that's about that. And I'm going to check. And some of people are still again asking me what's primary key, foreign key. Like I told, I'll be explaining those in that integrity constraints topic. For now, just remember that these primary and foreign keys are nothing but the integrity constraints. So most of you guys are asking me like generalized questions. Like I said, I want the questions to be more specific to the topics or the slides which we have covered in the past 40-50 minutes. That's how it helps for you to, ask and be focused and stick to the topic and don't think a lot about the other things. So yeah, try to focus on the topics which we are talking and ask your questions related to that. And if you have any general questions, I can definitely take those questions. But for these are like technical sessions, so please stick to the topic, and all your questions should be based on the slides which we have discussed so far. So someone has asked how much storage is required to have database in our computer. So we have like different types of products, like enterprise product is mostly used by the big companies. Standard edition is usually used some of the top companies like big companies, and small companies or mid-tier companies. And there is an express edition. This express Oracle edition is basically the for all the students, or if someone want to test out the product, it is basically free software which we can install and test our database software, how it is working and all. It's basically free, and usually it doesn't require much storage. If you have like maybe 100 and maybe 100 gig or 200 gig or 50, even 50 gig, it will work. Maybe if you have like 2 GB RAM or 4 GB RAM, I think that's pretty much sufficient for these express editions. But if you are building like enterprise big softwares and large data, then you need to have a larger database, larger hardware and storage and processors in order to get that best performance out of it. So someone is asking, sir, SQL and Oracle is same or different? So like I said, Oracle is a RDBMS software and SQL is like a common language. SQL is nothing but like a Java programming language or .NET or Python or whatever it's like. It basically is a machine understandable language. SQL is like machine understandable language. So in order to get the data from the database, you need to write a SQL query. So SQL is nothing but the language that you are using to communicate with the database. You instruct the database with the help of these select SQL statements. You write a select statement, and that select statement is going to go and hit the database. And as per your instructions that you have given in your select statement, it's going to hit the database and retrieve the results from the database. So SQL is a language, and Oracle is a software. Oracle is a software name. SQL is basically the language that you're using to access that software. So I have like few more questions. I'm gonna take few more questions from the chat. So someone has asked difference between tables and fields. So I'm gonna quickly show one of the slide. Yeah, so this is how a table looks like, right? So this is a sample table, and the employee ID, last name, first name, position ID, super ID, hire date, salary, commission, department ID, qualification ID. All these are like the columns, and these are all the rows. Like this is a Smith is a last name, first name is John Smith, Larry Houston, Sandy Roberts, Alex McCall, Derek. So all these are like rows. So looking at this table, so we'll see how many columns we have and how many rows we have. So we have like columns. We'll go first check the columns 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have 10 columns, and then we'll see rows. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 rows. Okay, let's say this particular piece. Okay, this particular piece here, the 2 or this one is nothing but a field. Okay, this is a field, and these are all rows. And these are the columns here. Okay, so I'm using this annotate to scribble my screen. So hope it's clear now for you. This is nothing but the field, and these are the columns, and these are all the rows. Okay, then I will go to the next question from the chat. So someone has asked, what is data type in SQL? So here, if you have observed, we have a lot of data in this table, right? So here it says something like hire date, right? Hire date is basically when this particular employee has been hired in the company. So it's basically contains the date field, right? So it's basically a data type. If if you see the first name, it says John. John is basically it's alphabets, right? John. All these are alphabets. Alphabets means characters. So here you are defining this data type as alphabets, or it can contain only characters. So that's a data type. And here it says employee ID, right? Employee ID is basically it contains numbers, right? We are defining it as numbers like employee ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or whatever. So here the number is a data type. So each column will contain a different type of data type based on the nature of the data. When I say nature of the nature of data could be number, characters, or date, or whatever. So that's nothing but a data type in the database in the tables. So that's how it works. And I'll go to the next questions. Someone asks, sir, is there any other language to communicate with database other than SQL? So all these RDBMS are only accessible through SQLs, right? So you need to write select statement if you want to communicate with the database and get some data. If you are requesting some data, it will a database will understand SQL statements. So someone asked difference between SQL and MySQL. Like I already said, MySQL is a product, just like Oracle or IBM DB2. Just that its a name is similar to SQL, but MySQL is basically a name of the product of the RDBMS software, whereas SQL is a structured query language. It is a language that we use to communicate with the RDBMS software databases. That's the difference. So can you explain the concept of block and table with the examples? Like I already told you, this is a table, right? Let's say this table holds some memory, some space in the database, right? Like I said, it's one MB. So let's say these four contains will occupy 4 KB. Okay, 4 KB. 4 KB of space. Let's say these four columns occupy 4 KB of space. So let's say my block size is 4 KB. So all these four rows respective to these four columns will be stored in one block. Okay. So these next four rows, let's say this is another 4K. This occupies another 4K. So it will be stored in another block. So data is basically, even though the table is logically displayed in a table, but if when it comes to physical memory structure, all these tables data is stored in blocks. So these blocks could be 4 KB or 2 KB or 8 KB or 16 KB. So those are standard block sizes within the database. So that's pretty much, I have a lot more questions, but most of them are duplicates. But if you still have any questions, you can, after the class, still do research on these topics. And if you still have any questions, you can definitely reach out to me, maybe in tomorrow's class or after the class. So now we'll move on to the next topic, that is types of commands in the SQL statement. So data definition language, data manipulation language, data retrieval language, transaction controls, and data control language. The data definition language is basically, we have like few different data definition languages like create, alter, drop, rename, truncate. and data manipulation language, inserts, updates, deletes. Data retrieval language. When you say retrieval, you are retrieving some information. That means you're selecting some information from the database. So transaction control, commit rollbacks. And data control language, grant and revoke. So these are the commands that we use within the SQL statement to do our operations, or if you want to communicate with the database, you write all the queries in SQL language using these commands like create, alter, drop, rename, truncate. So let's see in detail about these DDLs. So these are most important things with respect to database world. Like just like English is a language, right? A, B, C, D, F, G, H, E up to Z are all the alphabets. So those are like the basic thing of English language, right? Without learning alphabets, you will not be able to make a sentence, write a sentence, or if you will not be able to talk in English itself. Similarly, if you don't know about these DDLs, DMLs, transaction control, DCL, you will not never be able to um, understand what exactly database is, how to communicate with the database. So it's something like you need to by heart it. Even though if I ask you in the middle of a night, you should be able to tell me what are all part of DDL, what are all part of DMLs, what are all part of data control language, what are all part of transaction controls and stuff. So yeah, these are the most basic and important things of database terminology and database functionality. So we'll see a bit more in detail of this. Um, so basically, the term itself says data definition language. So what is a term mean by data definition language? So you're defining something, okay? So in English or in any language or in any social or science subjects, um, we'll say something like in physics. Let's take an example of physics. Define Ohm's law or define uh, chlorophyll or define photosynthesis or whatever it's something. Like what exactly define means? You are explaining something. You are trying to explain a term or terminology or a concept. So that same thing apply it in the database world. What is data definition language? So you're defining something. So what are we defining, exactly defining here? We are defining a table. So here, how do you define a table? Okay, so you name that table with some name, and you add all those columns in that table, and you attach some data type to that table and for that column. So, like I previously showed in one of my slides, the structure of the table. So if you see here, I'm defining some data types for all these columns. For these two columns, it is character. For this employee ID, it is number. And here again, it's number. And here it is a data type defined as a date column. And all these are like numbers, right? Hopefully you understood by now what exactly, how critical it is important to be learning data type with respect to the database. So that's about it, and we'll move on to the next data definition languages. And yeah, definitely we'll go in detail on how actually we implement this in practical sessions. So this is a syntax of create table, column name, and data type and your default expression. Default is like null or whatever. If you want to put something there, it will by default, if a new record is inserted, it will by default insert that default value that you define here, right? So then comes the column constraint. If you want to add any constraint like primary keys, foreign keys, check constraint, or any other constraint. So basically you're all defining what data should come into the table and all that information. Then comes the column data type, default expression, and column constraint. So these are, this is the data definition language, and we have other data definition languages like alter, drop. So alter is like basically literal meaning of alter, like let's say alteration. So you go to tailor or someone and you do alter your trouser or your shirt or whatever it is. So what exactly alteration means? Let's say if your jean, if you bought a new jeans, it is way too long for you. I mean, your foot is of one length and your jeans is of like maybe another 1 feet of extra jeans. So what do? You take it to the tailor or someone and you get it altered, right? Which means you are changing something which is already existing out there. So that's basically means you are modifying something which is already out there. And then comes the drop table. The drop is something you are deleting something from that database. So drop is like let's say you have downloaded some song or a video or a movie from online. So it gets downloaded and it will be stored on your hard disk. But if you want to clear all these old files or anything, you just go do right click, shift and delete, right? In your computer, you do shift and delete. So when you hit shift and delete, it's going to permanently delete that file from your computer, desktop or laptop. In the same way, in the database, if you want to delete some tables or something, you write a command like drop table, table name, and cascades constraint. This is a standard syntax we use, to create table, to alter table, and drop table. Describe table. Okay, describe is basically you want to describe the table. When I said describe, like let's say we have someone, let's say we have Mahatma Gandhi. So you define Mahatma Gandhi. So when we say he's a freedom fighter, he's a very soft-spoken person. He has a very high leadership qualities. He's very determined. He's a he led a lot of non-violent movements. He promotes ahimsa or whatever. So you are basically defining the character of a person. You are explaining his personality. You are explaining different things that you know about him. Similarly, if you want to describe a table, so you write this command like describe table name. So it basically defines how many columns you have and what are the data types that are associated with that column in that table. Let's say we have 10 columns. We'll go back to this table again. So here we have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have 10 columns here. So when you write a describe table name, it shows on screen these 10 columns and the data types that are associated with these 10 columns. So that's about that. The most important thing like data definition language, and this is an example of data definition language, creating a table, adding some columns, and there are some data types here: number, decimals, varchar. Varchar is nothing but variable character, and date and decimal. And here you are seeing some foreign key, primary key constraints. And at the end, you are seeing the alter statement, how exactly you write alter statement. So here, basically what you're doing is you have created a table here, and then immediately you are doing some alter statement, alter table employee, modify, commission is a column name, decimal 7,2. So basically we are trying to alter the data type of the column. So that's how this DDL works. And next, the another important thing is data manipulation language. So data manipulation language is more of inserts, updates, and deletes. Inserting, like I said before, it is adding new data. Updating is existing, modifying the existing data. And delete is more like removing the data from the record. Delete is nothing but removing the record from the table or the database. So that's about that. And the data manipulation languages insert, update, deletes. So simple way to remember is IUD. Data manipulation languages are IUD, insert, update, delete. And then comes the examples for these data manipulation languages. Insert into department is my table name, and then I have some columns, and then I'm inserting some records into the table. So this is how you insert records into the table. You write this insert statement into department is my table name, then the columns that are associated with the columns like department ID, department name, location, and then it has some values for that department. So that's how this thing works. And these are some examples. I'll be sharing this presentation, so you don't need to write these long queries. You will have it in reference when I share this PDF with you all. So data retrieval. So what is the meaning of retrieval? Retrieving or retrieve. Basically, you are pulling some information from somewhere. I want to retrieve something from the files. So you are searching in that files and you want to retrieve something from a bunch of files, right? So retrieve is basically you are selecting some information from someone and you get it back in return. So that's what data retrieval is. And you can write the statement uh, and extract the data from the table using the select statement. So select statement is basically the data retrieval language which we use to extract data from the table. And these are some of the examples like select star from department. We'll all see this in practical how we exactly write this. But today it's like more of a theoretical session. So I'll quickly give you some theory concept, explain it, and we will jump on to practical tomorrow, and we'll implement all these things and see how exactly these commands or queries work. Okay, then comes the data control language. So it says grant an object to users, public with grant option. So data control language is basically you're controlling the access on the data, right? So just like I can control you all guys, being I'm the host, I can control you whether I can mute yourself, I can mute you, unmute you. Since me being the host, I can create a breakout room, I can add you to that breakout room, or I can remove you from the meeting. So being a host, I have all these privileges, whereas if let's say you are a user, you have very limited privileges, that you can't unmute someone or you can't unmute me or something like that. Since me being the host, I have more privileges. Similarly, like in database administrators acts like hosts. The database administrators are the one who owns that software and who are responsible to manage that software. So database administrator will basically restricts the users and authenticate and will only authorize the users who are supposed to have access to the data. So those are like these commands helps us to control the access on the data. Like here, if you see grant select update on EMP, EMP is a table name to XYZ. XYZ is some user, right? So what it means here is grant select update. That means we are assigning two privileges for this user, EMP, on the table EMP. So it's like only I can select the data from the table, or only I can update the data from the table if I have these privileges. So that's about this data control language. And then we have the transaction control, like commit, rollbacks, save points. Commit is basically, just like if you add some data into the Excel, you go to file and click on save, right? And then all the records that you inserted in that Excel will be saved. Let's say you add some 10 rows in your Excel file, and without clicking on file, save as, or save, you close a session, you close that Excel file. So are those changes going to get saved in your Excel file? No, right? Because you didn't click on file, save as, or save or whatever, and you didn't store it somewhere. Just that even though you added records into that Excel file, at some point that Excel file is closed, you will lose out all the data if you don't issue a save or commit statement in the database. So that's the important piece of commit and rollback and save point, and we'll see how these things work in the database in the practical session. So yeah, that's about it for today's session. We have been discussing a lot of things. For the first day, we did a lot of theory, but yeah, but these are like, even though these are like sound simple and basic, these are the most important critical things that you all want to understand and learn thoroughly, because without these concepts you cannot understand how to work on a database, how to write a select statement, SQL statement, and communicate with the database. So you will not be able to do anything literally if you are not sure what these DMLs, DDLs, DCLs are all about. So I request you all to, after like the class, you all need to, go through again all these concepts. I'll be definitely sharing this out immediately after the class, the presentation, so you all can review it and dig in deep and do more research on the concepts and learn more in detail about all this. But yeah, if you still have any doubts, you can definitely reach out to me and ask more questions. So uh, now I'll take some of the questions from you all from the slides which I've discussed. Uh, like I said before, try to stick to the questions, to the topics. All your questions should be related to the topics which we have asked, which we have talked so far. Don't try to ask questions beyond the scope of the presentation for today, uh, because we are all aligned, and we ask right questions, and so that we get correct answers more specific to the sessions. So someone asked like, what is Sybase, product of SAP in RDBMS? So Sybase is a RDBMS software. It is one of the softwares just like Oracle or IBM DB2 or SQL Server. And this product is owned by SAP. So SAP is a company which owns this product, Sybase. So that's about that. And we have a few more questions. So someone is asking, sir, why are we discussing database, uh, Oracle database, So in databases, like Oracle is one of the complex architecture database, and it is more efficient and more secure, and it has a lot of features and functionalities. But the concepts which I'm explaining, all those are not specific to Oracle. These are concepts same across all the databases. It's not just Oracle. You can apply the same SQL statements. There could be slight syntactical changes, but overall the concept and the implementation, the logic, everything is same across all the databases. So when I say it's same, like I told you before, we have like multiple RDBMS softwares, right? So the logic remains same, only a slight syntactical changes will be there in different databases. But overall, if you know Oracle, you will be able to work on any of the other RDBMS software. So that's the beauty of Oracle, because Oracle is very highly complex architecture database. If you know how Oracle works, and if you can understand how Oracle it is, it will make your life very easy to work on any of the database in the world. So that's the reason I'm like I want to relate some of the things with Oracle, but that doesn't mean that it's not something which will not help you with other databases. Definitely, it will help you with other databases. And you guys, someone are asking more in detail about the syntactical in DDLs, DMLs. So all those are like syntaxes. We will all discuss. Don't worry about some of the terms if you don't understand them, but we all cover them up in the practical session. In each and every word in that syntax will have higher significance. So when I show you all how to run the selects, it will be more easy for you to understand and connect to what I'm trying to say. So that's about that. And what is meant by truncate? Truncate is another DDL statement. So you're truncating something. So we have something like delete and truncate. Truncate is more of a DDL. Delete is of DML. So when you say delete, you have the flexibility to either delete 1 row, 10 rows, 1,000 rows, 1 million rows. Okay, you can write a where condition, and if the where condition satisfied, then the delete statement executes. But if you do a truncate will basically wipe out all the data from the table. It does not give you any flexibility to delete partial table or 1 record or 10 records or 50% or 80% of the table. It will totally wipe out all the data from the table. So it's always safe to use delete statement, and then issue a commit so that all the changes will be saved in that database or tables. So that's the beauty of delete and truncate. And someone is asking, do SQL works in Ubuntu or Linux? So like I said, SQL is more to do with database, but not operating system. Operating system has a different language, right? Like for Windows, it's like PowerShell or something like that. And operating system like AX, Unix, Linux, they are more understandable and worked upon using the languages like Linux shell scripting or something else. But overall, like you cannot use SQL directly on an operating system. Instead, it is only accessible by Oracle or DB2 or SQL Server or whatever RDBMS software which you are using. And few more questions like, okay, today we discussed only 7 to 8 rules in the EF card. Is there a mandate to follow 12 rules? So I think Oracle will almost has satisfied I think more than 12 rules, more than 11 rules in order to called as a RDBMS software. So here in the notes field, you are seeing more information details that I have updated in my presentation of each and every rule and what does it mean and how does it impact to the data. So just be sure to refer to this file into the slide and notes field when you are reading about these EF code rules. So that's about it. And I think we are pretty good with for today's session. I see some of the questions being asked which are not so related for today's topics. I understand your curiosity of being proactive, asking many questions, but I am not answering all of your questions which are not relevant for today's topic. Those are all valid questions, but those are not relevant to today's topic. So I'm skipping those questions. Um, and we'll definitely take those questions in the coming sessions. Those are all more related to the topics that we are going to discuss in the coming days. So like I said before, please make sure you ask questions only the topics which we have discussed so far, and try sticking to the topic of whatever questions you are asking to me. So yeah, I think we are almost pretty much covered up all the basics, and from tomorrow we will be jumping on to practicals. I will be mostly we'll be using the Oracle Cloud for running our select statements and running our select SQL queries. I will show you how to do that and how to uh, have that cloud in your machines. So watch out for that. Maybe tomorrow we'll do that. But for today, please make sure you, after the class, you go through all the topics. Okay. Yeah, I think now I want we want to do some activity which we could not do yesterday. That's about the breakout sessions and breakout rooms. So with this, like, I want to end the technical part of the session for today. So we will now work on in creating the breakout rooms, and we will assign the mentors to you all, and we will create breakout rooms, and we will soon get all the breakout invitations to you one by one. So please be on hold and watch out for the breakout invitations. And I see someone is using the annotate, so I don't want you to do that. I'll disable the annotations so you're not playing with it. So request Shailendrana, are you online? Can you hear me, Shailendrana?
I'm here, I'm here.
Okay, so I think you have the list for boys, right? So I'm going to make you as host. So can we go like starting with one of the mentor? I don't know whom you have on the list on the first, but I want you to first pick one mentor from boys side and create one breakout room and assign all the students to that mentor first, and we'll go one by one after that. So first we'll do one mentor and add all the students to with respect to him, and then we'll create that room. Okay.
Done, done. And the first person is Sai Krishna. Are you here?
Okay, Sai Krishna is
Yeah.
mentor, right?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm ready to accept the group.
Okay, great.
Yeah, done. Ravi, make me the host.
Yeah, I did make you as host.
Okay, done, done.
You can make me co-host now.
Just a second, just a second. You are okay.
So Shailendra, when you add all these all these students to Sai Krishna,
Uh-huh.
before you open the room, just let me know because we want to assign them some IDs. So we want all the students to change their names and put their ID numbers in place of their names. So they need to change their profile name to the ID number which we give. So only after that name is changed, you can open the room. But you can go ahead and create the room, but they should be all creating, renaming their profile names. You know.
Yeah, I created the room. So do you want me to speak out the first student name so that he can change and then assign him to the mentor?
Yeah, correct.
Okay,
Or,
the first name is
I mean,
Ashok Uppala.
Shailubhai, instead, if you can just send me the student IDs to me, I could assign in the group. Instead, I mean, otherwise, all the people will come to know the student IDs for individual, if it makes sense.
Yeah, Shailendra, you can do that. So what you can do is just copy those 10 or whatever number of students which is assigned to Sai Krishna and assign
Right.
um, like ID number. Let me text you what IDs we need to generate. So you can go ahead and create room for Sai Krishna. Maybe you can open the
Uh,
room. So
I just created one second.
is it done? Is it created?
I'm just creating I have created the mentor. I'm just assigning the people.
Okay. Okay, also the another request from my side is I'm seeing some of them are having photos, profile pictures on their Zoom. We don't need any profile pictures during attending these classes. So for example, Anil Adakan. Anil, can you go ahead and remove your profile picture now? And also the same rest of all. Can you all remove your profile pictures immediately now? Some of them are having their profile pictures. I mean, mentors, I'm okay. They don't need to remove their profile pictures, but students, all of you need to take out your profile pictures on your Zoom profile. Anil Adakan, I'm not sure if you're able to hear me. I'm unmuting you. Can you take out your profile picture, Anil? And also rest of them, please take out your profile pictures. Arvind Kumar M, I'm seeing your picture. Bharat Krishnam, you also have your profile picture. Can you please remove your profile pictures now? I think you need to go to settings, like on Zoom, on the top right corner, you have your profile name, where you click on that and go to settings and change your profile picture